About 33 people coming in, so let's
All right.
maybe
Well,
give it just a minute, Kev.
we'll give it about 30 seconds. I think.
People.
All right. Welcome, everyone. Hello and good day. We're really excited about today's call with all of you. We know it's happening amidst tremendous tumult right now around the world. What else is new over the past 2 years? But one thing that's wonderful about the HR community and what we're very thankful for is everyone seems to come together, and you're all learning from each other. You're all helping each other, and this is no different this week as well. So we are very, very thrilled to welcome you all to this week's call. Shari, let's go through the logistics stuff so we can get right into all the good stuff. Or I mean, Kari, I'm already getting into Shari. Hi, everyone. I'm the Chief Research Officer at I4CP, Kevin Martin, and I'm thrilled to be with my co-host, as usual, Kari Naimon. Hi, Kari.
Hello, everybody. Kari Naimon. I am a Senior Research Analyst with I4CP and really happy to be with you all today. Thanks for joining us.
We are, as you can see, highlighted in red. We're a little giddy here at I4CP, and I mean in a good way, given everything that's happening, because we can't wait to finally get together in person after a 2-year hiatus with many of you who are going to be on this call today at our next Practice Now conference in Scottsdale. Today, I think, is the last day you could sign up virtually. So if you'd like to sign up virtually and listen in on the amazing speaker lineup, it's rated the #1 HR conference in the world, 2 years running for a reason. Very good quality, and we look forward to having you dial in if you are going to be there virtually. And then, of course, you can see the cadence of calls that we've got open publicly for you all to take part in and listen to over the next few weeks here. And as you know, we bring these to you on a monthly basis. So for those of you who are new to I4CP, we're a member-driven research firm and community. What that means is that we do not do vendor-sponsored research. We do not have consultants from the consulting community. As much as we love them, they're not allowed in our network to be able to, pitch what they're doing, et cetera. We create research for our members by a very large global database of HR leaders that we have around the world. These are some of our member organizations here. And if you'd like to learn more about I4CP, by all means, let us know in chat, and we'll make sure we connect you. This is our speaker alignment for next week in Scottsdale. It's a who's who, and we're really thrilled about it. So hopefully we'll see you there. All right, we're moving fast through this, Kari, which is awesome. We are super excited to have our guest today. As many of you know, we were, well, pun intended, we were slated to have Cisco's. I see the heads nodding. Way to go, Kev. Thank you very much. I occasionally have a zinger like that. We were supposed to have Fran Katsoudas, who has a most amazing title, which is Cisco's Chief People, Policy, and Purpose Officer, with us today, but she's been called away on duty, and we were thrilled. I mean, it really speaks volumes to an organization when things come up that are out of your control, when they come in and say, hey, you know what? We've already arranged to have someone who you will absolutely love. And Shari Slate, who has, I think, the biggest title in the planet. So I don't know how she actually has time to join us, because she's actually on PTO today as well, Shari Slate. But we're thrilled to have you. Thank you so much. And just welcome to our community here, Shari Slate.
Oh my goodness, Kevin, thank you so much. And Kari, so good to see you. Hello, everyone. Before we start, I just want to send a very heartfelt regrets from Fran. She so wanted to be here to join this conversation. I know she was looking forward to it. But as you can imagine, with the war in the Ukraine, she is headed to that region. She will be meeting with our employees, with customers, with government leaders to show Cisco's support for all those that are being impacted by this crisis.
Wow.
So I'm Kevin and Kari. I'm going to do my best job to try to channel my inner Fran. I promise you, it is an honor to be here, and I'll do my best to represent her well.
Well, we're just thrilled to have you, Shari. And we know your inner Fran will be just fine, but we want the inner you. And that's the best thing. And so, we were just really curious here, folks, just, the elephant in the room is exactly what Shari Slate just brought up. And so we just wanted to get an idea from all of you, how is your organization right now being affected by the war in Russia, Ukraine? And so this is a multiple choice question. And if you just take a moment here, we'll keep it up for 45 seconds. But as you all can see, the poll questions should be in front of your desktop right now. We want to know if directly or indirectly you're being affected by the war and in what ways, from contractors or facilities that are based there, major clients, employees, who live or work, in indirectly, what we should say, let's say, employees who maybe are more in that region or aren't there. I think that's the indirectly one. So we apologize in the typo. That's totally on me. So if it's indirectly more like we don't have employees that are there, but man, it's something that's really causing distraction or discussion among our workforce. I think that's the way we want you to answer that. And so we'll keep this open for just a few more seconds, just curious to see where we are. And we want to thank everyone who's already using the chat to tell us who you are and where you're based from as well. So thank you very much. Kari and I are going to do the best we can to monitor the chat. If you've got a question you'd like to ask, by all means, feel free. And Kari, what are you seeing here when you look at the results?
Yeah, so one of the, Frankie Ann, I hope I'm saying your name right, had said that they have employees who have family there, which I think would probably be indirectly, but even just between directly and indirectly, we're looking at, I can't do math, 32%. I think that's right. Yep. And then curious we've got about 23% that said other. If anybody wants to come off mute and let us know what other means, because we're learning too as this goes. So it'd be interesting to know what the other means for some of you.
Yeah, anyone want to come off mute and just share with us what the other means for your organization?
So for myself, other means that we have family members in the region. So it's not directly an employee, but obviously it impacts the employee because, they're concerned about their family members there.
Right. Yeah. No, that's good. Yeah.
Thanks. That was the same from Frankie.
Gotcha.
Yep. Awesome. Thank you all very much. I know I speak for all of us. Our thoughts and prayers are with everyone over in that region, everyone being affected. So God bless everyone. All right. Well, with that, and we've got a lot of things that Shari Slate is ready to share with us. And but I would like to start with this, Shari. Your title is amazing. I don't know how it fits on a business card unless your business card's the size of a billboard. But you've got all kinds of things under your realm. You've got, and one of the more interesting things is instead of inclusion and diversity, you've got inclusion and collaboration as part of your title. Can you just tell us a little bit about that remit, the decision that went into that, et cetera? It's really interesting.
Absolutely, Kevin. First, let me just say, I think I have the absolute best job at Cisco. And it's because everything that sits in my organization that we are responsible for serves our purpose. I'll tell you a little bit more about our purpose as we get further into this conversation, but as it relates to this title, inclusion and collaboration, it all stems back from an interview some 10 years ago, sitting across the table from a then sales leader who said, there is something in your day job that has incredible value in what I do in mine. What that leader was talking about was one part how important inclusion and diversity was for his organization. But the other thing that he was talking about was this X billion-dollar market that we were building some 10 years ago called collaboration. What he knew to be true was it was going to unleash the power of participation of people because they would work anytime, anywhere, on any device. And he was very clear that inclusion was going to play a role in how people were going to show up in the future of how they were going to live, work, play, and learn. He coined the term inclusion and collaboration. And when he became CEO, our fearless leader, Chuck Robbins, he and Fran created the Office of Inclusion and Collaboration. I became the first Chief Inclusion and Collaboration Officer. And the remit of the work was really about how do we create value through the power of participation of people through the intersection of inclusion, diversity, collaboration, and technology. Listen, I will tell you, it has been a fascinating run for the last 7 years doing this work. Recently, we have expanded the remit and service of the our purpose for the company. So my organization actually has a pretty big remit now. One part, we help set the people strategy for the company, and that's how do we remove the barriers that are standing in the way of our people delivering on our business strategy. The second body of work is inclusion and collaboration, everything that you know and love about DE&I, but from that intersection of inclusion, diversity, collaboration, and technology, the value creation through people. The third thing that we are responsible for is Next Horizon Community Impact. It's how do we inspire action across our employees, customers, partners, and suppliers to positively impact people, planet, and society. And then most recently, our Inclusive Future Action Office. The Inclusive Future Action Office is responsible for how we operationalize our purpose, how we hold multi-year actions in service of delivering on our promise of what we said we were going to deliver with our purpose. It's a lot.
That is a lot. And, it's so, you couldn't have foreshadowed it more, right? That inclusion and collaboration are one and the same anymore, especially in this new way of work, right? And we hear that all the time around, concerns that businesses have, especially around, are we going to end up with a culture of haves versus have-nots because of people who feel like special treatment's happening here or there, or maybe I'm not being included in certain projects if I'm not within eyesight, arm's reach, let's say, of someone in that regard. And but you had mentioned at the end, Shari, about purpose, and I know that purpose is really, really important. Heck, it's even in Fran's title, which I don't know of many people who are also in charge of HR where they have purpose so clearly put into their title. Can you talk to us about what purpose means at Cisco? How you operationalize it, anything you can to just allow us to better understand its role at the company.
Absolutely. So first, let me start with our purpose. Our purpose is to power an inclusive future for all. Cisco has long been on a journey for decades to ensure that we positively impact people, planet, and society. We had efforts across the entire company sitting in CSR efforts, inclusion and diversity efforts, all of the efforts happening to deliver on our ES&G goals, social value efforts, and I'm just going to say . And it has served us well as we have tried and worked very hard to serve the world and people. And all of that is the foundation for what we're doing now. We're actually bringing all of those efforts together in service of outcomes that are aligned to the aspiration of our purpose. When I think about the aspiration of our purpose, it really does guide our work. When you look at each one of the pillars, power, inclusive, and future, they have a really distinct meaning. Let me share those with you. When we think about power is how we ethically develop and deploy technologies that are going to securely connect the world. Inclusive is the things that we're going to do in a bold way to ensure that we're accelerating fairness and equity and inclusion and opportunity. And future is everything that we're doing to drive sustainability today and tomorrow. And then when we get to that last word, for all, for all is really about the how we're going to do it and who we're going to do it with. It's for all with all, right? So when we think about our stakeholder stack, our employees, our customers, our partners, our suppliers, the community, we're going to do it with them and for them together. But let me give you some context to the kind of work that's sitting inside of those pillars that are going to deliver on the aspiration of our promise. If we take, let's just take power first. So power, good examples of the work that we're doing there, guidelines that we have recently launched that really govern the decisions that we make when law enforcement and government ask us and request our customer data. Another example of the work that we're doing in power is, how we're connecting the world. The work that we have done to support countries and communities during COVID with our CDA, our country digitization efforts. We have some 70 projects where we partnered through innovation around the world to bridge the gaps and support what was needed to ensure that those communities thrived and survived during COVID. When you think about inclusive, I think the perfect example there, against the backdrop of the murder of George Floyd, the Cisco actions that we created as a commitment to the African American Black community, there's 12 of them. I know we're going to talk about them later, so I won't do a deep dive, but it's a perfect example of how we're showing up for that community, but in a really different way, in a way that drives recurring impact and generational change. And then when we think about sustainability, I think a great example is of the recent commitments that we've made with net zero across all of our emission categories to achieve them by 2040. And those categories are, certainly the use of our technology, it's, our operations, and then certainly supply chain. When you look at our largest emissions, that's in our technology use. And an example there is, if you double click, is the way in which we're doing and driving innovation with the likes of our Silicon One, which happens to be our programmable chip, and it is using 26 times less power than its predecessor. So these are the kinds of examples of how the work that's happening in each of these pillars is delivering on the aspiration of that pillar. When we think why we're operationalizing purpose, it's because purpose has become a strategic compass for how we design our products, how we engage our stakeholders, how we go to market in a way that is going to solve the world's most complex challenges for governments, industries, companies, and communities. It's how we're going to not just engage our people, but take care of our people. Listen, if you are at all curious about how this is coming together and know that we are on a journey, we delivered our first purpose report in December. I encourage you to go out and take a look at it. You can see how the work is being mapped to each of the pillars and how you're going to start to see us talk about the outcomes in a way that demonstrates that we are delivering on our promise to power an inclusive future for all.
I love all of that. I did take a look at the report, by the way. It is very impressive and very thorough. So I would also encourage, if people have a chance to go out to the site, to take a look at it. It's really, really well done. Sorry for my voice. You're the first conversation I've had today. Just it's early.
I thought you were
Seattle.
getting verklempt, Kari.
No, not
getting
not quite yet. No, but it could have led me there. Right. I'm wondering, just, the idea around, concept of purpose and all the things that you just shared. I'd like to go back, maybe if we could, to where we started this conversation, because it's all connected around, where is Cisco situated in terms of the war in Ukraine, and how are you sort of dealing with, I assume you have employees, at least if not in the countries, then near. What's Cisco's approach? How are you managing through this current crisis?
Let me start by saying that Cisco unequivocally condemns the war being waged by Russia and the violence that has been unleashed on innocent civilians. With that, as a company, we have taken 5 immediate actions. The first is that we have stopped all business in Russia and Belarus for the foreseeable future. That is both for sales and services. The second is that we are supporting entities in Ukraine by helping to support them as they work to stop cyber threats against their entities. The third is that we are deeply focused on the safety of our people and their families. The fourth is that we've set up a humanitarian fund to serve the NGOs that will be on the ground there. And with that, the fifth is the partnership that we have with NGOs that will be doing two things. One, leveraging Cisco technology to support the efforts on the ground and to support those that have fled and or relocated. Listen, these are the immediate actions that we have taken right now based on the need, but we are so clear that this war isn't ending tomorrow, and or the impact of the war is not ending tomorrow. We needed a rubric for how we guide the actions that come going forward. So with that, we are leveraging a crisis framework. We used it during COVID. We used it to shape our actions against the backdrop of the murders of George Floyd, and we are using it again. And it is powerful. There's three areas that we focus on. One is to support the most vulnerable. Two is to enable communities. And three is to promote safety and resilience. I will tell you what's underneath each of those helps to shape and guide the actions that we create. Let me give you some context. When we think about the most vulnerable, Cisco deeply believes in the power of proximity. What does that mean? We believe that you have to get proximate to the most vulnerable to understand their lived experience, to move you to empathy, to drive action. We are leveraging the power of proximity in this war. We are getting close to those communities. Most importantly, when we think about the action that we need to take, it is relevant and real as it relates to something that we know to be true. What we know to be true is that systemic racism, discrimination, and bias gets exacerbated during crisis. What we know is that our actions have to address the most vulnerable and insecure at every level. When we think about some of the work that the new actions that are coming online, I'll start with the fact that we started making the ability to leave the country available to our employees weeks ago. In doing that, we also understand and respect that some of our employees did not want to leave. In addressing the insecurity at all levels, we have created an emergency response system such that if you have left or if you have stayed, we are able to keep in contact with you so that we understand what you need in the moment. We are doing check-ins with them. We have also, at the same time, created a fund, a humanitarian fund. You see, our entire employee base wants to do their part to support their colleagues and innocent people in the region. And so with that, in the last, I think, just a couple of days, we've raised $1.3 million from about 5,800 employees. But this is an example of how we are creating actions that help to serve the most vulnerable. And there are a number of other actions that go underneath that. When we think about communities, we know that war creates a ripple effect. There are communities at the center, and there are repercussions for the communities that are surrounding the crisis. What we know is that we have to take care of both of them. And as we look to do that, it is so clear that the decisions that we are making in order for them to be relevant have to come from those that are closest to the crisis. Mm-hmm. And so what we're doing with many of our actions relative to communities, we're moving those decisions closer to those who can better assess or best assess the need. An example of how we're doing that is we've made available $1 million grant from our foundation, and we are moving it to the region for our employees and our leaders to allocate those funds as the needs arise. And then the third pillar of our crisis response is about promoting safety and resiliency. We know that the impacts of this war will be long lasting. We know that our responsibility is to address the immediate need and invest in the infrastructure and the programs that are going to lead to long-term success. The kinds of investments that you'll see us bring forward are investments in education, in economic empowerment, in infrastructure and programs for Ukrainian people and those that have been displaced. Those actions are forthcoming, and I would say stay tuned, because I am showing this alone. We are going to coalesce with our employees, our customers, our partners, hopefully many of your companies on this call, to go do that together.
Shari, thank you for all those details. It's incredible to see how Cisco is taking such a multi-pronged approach at, addressing this and other crisis areas. Kari Naimon, it reminds me a little bit. Yesterday, Shari Slate, we had an internal community call, and there was a senior HR executive from a very large global company who shared, and they've got a strong employee contingent in the regions most affected right now, where they supplied them with satellite phones just to keep those people, connected locally and doing something with them, or at least being able to know how they can best affect. And then Kari Naimon, I'm thinking of, and I won't name the company here, but when Shari Slate said we're driving the decisions locally, I was thinking about the company that you and I have been interviewing lately.
Oh, yeah.
That's one of our members, and it's all around, they've got a major sustainability initiative. It's not necessarily the type of company you might associate with sustainability, but they've got major initiatives around it, but they empower all the economic decisions at the very, very local level there. And that way they know that where they're earmarking their funds are going exactly to where it's going. We've talked, Shari, one of the things you mentioned is the racial, the social injustice. There's certainly, we have a survey going live today, by the way, for the audience out there. So watch for it at i4cp.com. But it's basically companies' response to what's happening in Ukraine and Russia. And one of the questions that's in that survey is are you noticing that any employees of Russian descent within your company, are they being discriminated against right now? And so, racial, social injustices happen all the time under all types of circumstances and situations. And just, curious, is there anything in addition that you want to share about Cisco's response and what you all do with regard to social, racial injustice? Anything to continue on that?
To share more on that, and the answer is yes. And against the backdrop of the murders of George Floyd in 2020, Cisco, like many of your companies, were at an inflection point with how we were going to stand up and show up, not just for the Black community, and in the face of injustice that is happening around the world. For us, we shaped 5 beliefs, and those 5 beliefs are the beliefs that guide us as we create actions anywhere around the world where we are seeing injustice happen. Those 5 beliefs, which we have also applied to our response in the Ukraine and how we are engaging with our employees, are as follows. The first is technology for good. We will continue to build the technologies that create possibilities for people and communities around the world. But what we won't do is customize those technologies in a way that creates oppression or discrimination. We believe in justice. We believe it's apolitical. We believe and know that we will do our part to ensure that people live in a fair and just world. We know that we don't own that all as on our own. We've got to do it collectively with others, but we will do our part. We believe in the insecurity of being and addressing that. And this gets Kevin to a little bit about what you were talking about. listen, we have long supported the insecurity of human need against a disaster. Think food, water, shelter. It is so evident in what we are seeing around the world that there is this notion of an insecurity of being. If you want to know what that is, it's the following, that you can be insecure because of the marginalized community that you are a part of, and you can be targeted with racism, hatred, discrimination, violence, and death. We're committed to closing the gap on the insecurity of being and making it a part of how we show up in the world in crisis and against injustice. The third is, or fourth actually, is curiosity, proximity, and empathy. We believe that we have to be deeply curious about systems of oppression, both modern and historic. We have to then get proximate to the lived experience of those that are experiencing it. And then we need to be moved to empathy so that we take the action to do something about it. And then the last belief is a coalescence, that we will use our resources to coalesce our employees, our customers, our partners, our suppliers, all of you, the community, to take action together to create an impact. And we are really clear on the kind of impact that we are looking to make. It is about recurring impact, so it's not a one and done. And then it's got to drive generational change, which leads to long-term sustainability of that impact. So those are the beliefs that we stand in against, with injustice happening anywhere in the world. From the standpoint of what happened in 2020, it then birthed 12 actions that we are driving over 5 years to deliver that recurring impact and generational change. Those actions are incredibly meaningful for us. They stem from everything from advocacy and policy, think voters' rights, as well as how we are shaping policy around police reform, through to things that are going to feel very familiar, representation inside of our companies at every level, including the board, through to what we call getting capital and customers to the Black community. What does that look like? That looks like ensuring that we are serving education, which we deeply believe drives generational change, driving diversity in the ecosystem of our partner community, and then certainly we're a technology company, right? Investing in technologies that are coming from Black founders and Black companies. That said, some of our most notable actions with big dollars behind them, the $150 million commitment to preserving the legacy of HBCUs. Listen, we believe that education drives generational change. More than 46% of Black engineers come from HBCUs. The legacy of HBCUs in technology is paramount to ensure diversity. So we are doing two things: making sure that those students can get an education, as well as making sure that the technologies are in place so that those institutions can thrive. The second would be $50 million that we've allocated to ensure that we're diversifying our ecosystem of partners. We know that our partners are actually very important to communities. They help communities thrive because they are small businesses in local places. And so we are looking to diversify our ecosystem. And then the third is around the investment in startups. I mean, certainly we invest in new technology. We've allocated a fund, the Aspire Fund, and built it with $50 million that we will be allocating to diverse founders that are creating the new technologies that are going to drive the world. So those are just a few of the kinds of actions that serve our inclusive pillar. Remember, we talked about our 5 pillars. They're delivering on the aspiration to ensure that we take bold action to accelerate fairness, justice, and opportunity for all. But what I want you to know about both the beliefs and the actions that we created is that we are deeply committed to the full spectrum of diversity. And so what we do for one community, we are learning along the way. And it is our blueprint for how we're going to serve all communities based on what their needs are. So we have already started, and even in the Aspire Fund, as we have invested in Black founders, we have also now invested in women founders as well as in the Latinx community. So what you're starting to see as we learn with how we serve the Black community, we are taking those learnings and building them across the entire ecosystem of diversity.
Amazing. Very comprehensive, Shari. And I love the fact that you're continuing to build. So you're starting in one place and then you're taking your learnings and applying it to other places and continue to sort of grow and build that whole momentum around diversity, inclusion, belonging, all the things that you just discussed. I want to just sort of transition that to Cisco's approach to hybrid work, because so much of that is also around ensuring inclusion, diversity, no one gets left behind. How are you all approaching our sort of next step in this whole post-COVID world?
So I think the first thing is hybrid. Cisco's all in. I think all 80,000+ of us, whether you work 5 days a week at home or 5 days a week from the office, we're all hybrid. I think, to quote my boss, Fran Katsoudas, Fran says, work isn't where you go, it's what you do. And with that, we're leaving it up to our people to decide how they're going to find success for themselves and their teams in hybrid. What we're not leaving up to them is that inclusion is embedded in how they work. Let me tell you why that matters. Hybrid is ushering in this opportunity for people to work anytime, anywhere, on any device. It's unleashing the power of participation of people. We have long believed that when using our collaboration technology, you can get people, the right people, in the room, at the table. And when I say right people, that's also a diverse mix of people participating virtually or physically or some combination in between. And when you do that, you have the best ability to deliver on the promise of what we said diversity would always bring, which are better outcomes. Listen, we are sitting in a time where we have a critical mass of companies ready and willing to use the technology to unleash the power of participation of people. That is one of the gifts that we did get from COVID. And with that, we have the ability to ensure that we are bringing equity to all people so that they can have an equal seat at the table, regardless of where that table may be. That said, it is incumbent on all of us from an HR standpoint to actually play a bigger role, to take our rightful seat at the table, to architect for fairness and equity and opportunity in our companies, because hybrid is ushering in an unprecedented opportunity for diversity to live and thrive inside of your organizations in ways that it wasn't possible before. But it can only happen if we do some things differently, if we actually lean into the technologies, start to influence what goes inside of our companies, start to architect new muscles with inside of our leaders in terms of the data and the insights and the decision making that they have. And then most importantly, how we start to lean on the power of empathy to create more empathic and collaborative experiences for our people to ensure that they thrive in this next phase of how we're going to work. That said, I have one of my colleagues on the phone, and he might want to jump in here because he runs our innovation labs at Cisco. For Fran, I think one of the things about my boss, she's phenomenal. She has long believed in the power of technology and what it would mean for HR. Hybrid in particular and technology, it is a critical moment for us because the technologies that we bring into our companies right now are going to shape forever the hybrid experience and environment, which ultimately feeds to culture and employee experience. So I know my good friend Giampaolo Borozzi is on the call, and Fran, he's like Fran's CTO, if you will, but I don't know if he's out there, but he may have a couple of thoughts that he would want to chime in.
Thank you, Shari. Yes, I'm here, and it's a pleasure being here. Just a couple of comments. I mean, we're all being in HR, and the power of the digital technology today are the foundation of our culture. This is why it's fundamental for all our HR teams to have a digital innovation lab with the ability to understand not only the technology that we have today, but also their implication for tomorrow. And also, you know, people out there are redefining the way in which they work every day. And they're creating small signals of the future for tomorrow. And having the ability to analyze, see, recognize those signals, test them within the organization is helping our corporations to become future ready, or even better, to be able to leverage these changes for our future. So that's why we built that innovation lab, and we see a lot of value in it. Finally, you know, digital technology are now enabling to allow us to really see how our people are working together, because one of our studies says that in the future, 98% of all meetings will have at least one remote participant, which means that the digital technology for collaboration is a fundamental enabler. And so the data that we are creating with that and the insight that we can extract are unique. And it's actually the very first time in the history of work, if you want. So it's a pleasure being here. Thank you.
Giampaolo, thank you. Thank you so much for coming. And Shari, thanks for thinking of bringing in Giampaolo. I have a question for him, but Shari, you've got something you wanted to mention quickly?
No, go ahead and ask the question.
Okay.
You go.
Just a couple of things. For the HR leaders on here, can you just talk a little bit more, Giampaolo, about the digital HR lab? You know, the purpose it serves specifically. So give a use case as to how it's used within Cisco. And then so that's the first question. The second question then gets into, I cannot help but think, and Kari Naimon and I were talking about this offline, there's got to be some type of like organizational network analysis type of capability where you're able to isolate and see where that information flow or bottlenecks or relational type needs are. And maybe you can expound upon that a little bit as well.
Absolutely. So which is our target? Our target is really to look at what is happening in the world of work, and particularly trying to look at the area of cross-fertilization or the area of convergences. For example, when we're thinking about the future of work, right now we're running a project in Venice in which we are combining hybrid work and smart cities. Venice is by design a 20-minute city. And you know that, there are some metropolitan areas that started with this concept of 15-minute city. You have around, at the walking distance around you, you have all your fundamental services. And what we are doing is we're looking, before our lab existed, we were looking at smart cities from an IoT and infrastructure perspective, and hybrid work from a smart office perspective. And so what this lab can do is actually analyze the convergence of those two elements, what we're starting calling a smart working city. So what happens for you moving from your home to the streets, to the garden, to the park, and then to the office and coming back. A second example is what you quoted. We started reviewing organizational network analysis a couple of years ago, and now is becoming part of our WebEx Insight suite, and is actually coming from the work of our innovation lab, which is the fundamental difference in perspective, is that we are not pure data scientists that are looking at the interaction and how they can be exploited. We are HR professionals that have the human being at the center. And so we were able to bring the conscious culture that we built into the data, making sure that those data are fair, making sure that those data are private, making sure that those data are at the service of the individual for helping the individual to thrive versus being at the service of the business leader or the manager to control their people. And so there is a wisdom into how you analyze the technology, how you interpret the trends that is very specific to HR. We're looking also at artificial intelligence. Every function in each corporation will have their own specific target. Marketing, to make it more visible, to make the product more visible. Sales to sell more. Engineering to develop the better feature. Who's caring about the user as a human being, or how the user is actually looking and perceiving this technology, and who is looking at how this technology is impacting our people? That's an amazing new role for HR. And so what we need is, we need specialists that, I have people in our team that are able to code, but it's not the coding element, it's the ability to know the technology well enough to understand the risk, but also to understand those potential that we never saw, right?
Mm-hmm. That makes complete sense. And Shari, we want to move to our poll questions that we've got, but you've got a comment that we want to hear.
I think there's three things that I would share. The work that GP's team has done is what is being built into our collaboration technologies. We are building inclusion into our collaboration technology so that we can do a couple of things. One, we can understand how people are participating. Two, we can make sure that we are including them in the business, in the participation in delivering business outcomes for the company. And three, we can understand how we can help to support their well-being by creating more empathic collaborative experiences. As HR leaders, there's probably three things that we need to be mindful of right now in this moment. The first is influencing the technology that's going into your organizations. I think one of the questions we have is, how many of you are actually working with your CIOs to influence the technology that's going into your organizations? What Fran says on a pretty regular basis is that she works more now with her technology peers than ever before. It is a muscle and a relationship that we must build. It is the most critical relationship that we have in HR for the success of hybrid work. The second is empowering our people with data and insights to ensure that we can make better decisions as we get into hybrid. Listen, we are the sum of the decisions that we make every minute of every hour of every day of every year. And with hybrid, we are going to have access to data and insights to make better real-time decisions. GP and his team have created what we call inclusion insights that are a part of our platform. We use WebEx that allows our leaders to know who's participating, who we are meeting with, how frequently, how to and when to schedule meetings that are going to be optimal for the entire team versus one segment of the team. Those insights play into then the well-being of our people. We all know that that is something that we are going to have to continue to address long term as we continue to move through hybrid. And so building empathy into your collaboration experience is paramount. GP and his team have created, GP, I'm going to get this wrong, these guides that help us architect empathy in everything from how we conduct meetings to how we collaborate across teams to how we engage our people. And I think we're making those available in the next, I think this month, actually.
Yeah, this month. And thank you, Shari. And Kevin, goes back to your question. What we did there, we partnered with a design agency and a design school for getting their young alumni. And what they did with us, we analyzed 200 different experiences, virtual, that were created in the last period of the pandemic, where nobody could meet in person. And we were able to really see very different industries were connecting. You know, the fashion business with the virtual catwalk, game design, entertainment, arts, museum, businesses, you know, business consulting. And so we believe that now HR has this ability to raise our head and sight and really look cross-functionally, not only internally to our companies, but also at what is happening externally, and being able to mix and match all these elements to identify the best solution that we can provide.
So, Gianpaolo, you know, just trying to connect dots here, we've done extensive research on collaboration with Professor Rob Cross from Babson College. And, you know, one of the things that was so clear in that research is how successful collaborations are really intentionally orchestrated collaborations, you know, around a specific problem where you've got the right experiences, where you've, you know, ensuring, you know, clarity of decision rights, all kinds of things. But, you know, one of the things that research really brought forth was the criticality of understanding, to your point, where the bottlenecks or information flows are, or where you're looking and saying, our businesses are going to be, if you look out where we're going to be growing, there's opportunity here where we've got to combine this and that. At your point, we were looking at hybrid work and we're looking at smart cities, but, you know, where you're intentionally able to say, you know what, where do we need to broker network relationships as well in order to bring people together and plan for that as part of their development? And I see you nodding. That's got to be part of how you're utilizing that as well, huh?
Absolutely, absolutely. I didn't want to get into the technicalities, but yes. And by the way, Rob is a good friend of ours. He was 3 years ago a visiting researcher for us, for our team. So we learned a lot from him. Absolutely, the ability with this collaboration insights. Now we have the ability to deliberately build the network.
Yeah.
I can give you a very specific example. We had one of our leaders in HR leaving. She was reporting to Fran. And what we would have done in the past, we would have written a nice job description with her responsibility and the ability to manage a certain number of people, right? Our analysis of her work showed that she was the second most diverse connected person in the entire organization. She was an amazing, powerful connector. And by the way, I shouldn't say it, but the first one is over there with us, was and is Shari Slate. But anyway, so now when we were thinking about replacing that leader, now we knew that the job description and the ability to manage a team was not enough anymore. We were able to provide this information to her successor so that that person was able to understand the level of connectivity that the previous leader had and decide, I want to continue this level. I want to reduce this one. I want to create new ways. And when we are onboarding people, we can kind of place their dot in a specific place within the network. We have also evolved this concept with a fundamental introduction, which is the team level view. We're providing our teams the visibility of their collective network. This is how I am not only leveraging my secondary connection, but I'm leveraging the connection of my peers in my team. And so when somebody joined the team, I know which is the gaining social capital that we all get as a team. When another person leaves, we know the loss that we have. And so this idea of looking at the network now as team nodes is becoming fundamental, because we're now thinking about teams as part of a larger ecosystem.
I'm also wondering, just you had mentioned, you know, this person left and we were able to actually use the ONA tool that we've built to sort of make sure we backfilled that the appropriate way. Just with the Great Resignation, are you able to identify pockets of the business or even people within the business that you might be at risk of losing and maybe sort of proactively try to bring them back in? Is there any application of the tool for that, or maybe others?
We're very careful. Yeah, we're very careful on prediction. We're very, very careful on prediction.
Mm-hmm.
We don't want our people to feel that we believe our organization is ruled by algorithm.
Mm-hmm.
But what we can see, for example, is the weaknesses in teams network, right? The weaknesses in individuals network, right? Or, for example, we are providing each individual a clear idea of who are the connections that are decreasing and the one that are increasing. Please, Shari.
I would say, I think with the Great Resignation, this is a bit of a grand experiment that we're all living through. I think it's a combination of one part, what we see with the insights, and the other part, what we architect, what we're responsible for architecting for the organization, which are new possibilities. And I think from a Cisco perspective, it's one part using the data that we have from the work that GP and his team are doing, but the other part is what we've always done really well. Listen, first, from a Cisco perspective, we're leveraging what is, I would say, unique to us because we've been doing it for a long time, but it is part and parcel to what all of you have as well, which is a flexible work environment. Listen, we have been long on this journey for working remotely, anywhere, anytime, on any device, and then architecting the ability for people to be successful in that. We know from a Cisco standpoint, based on what our employees have told us, it is one of our superpowers. And in this time of the Great Resignation, we're leveraging that. But we're also leveraging what we hear from our people, and that is that they want to be in new and different hubs when they do go back to work. And so we are rolling out an entire site strategy that is an evolution of where we were before the Great Resignation and COVID. And we are launching, we're going to be in Chicago now, Austin, Atlanta. So these newer hubs that we have heard from our people and where we know the talent that we need for our organization are there and want to work. But more importantly, it's not just that we're going to those locations, it's how we are creating the spaces for people to collaborate and create a lived experience in the hybrid work world that is new and different from what they experienced in the past. My colleague, Christian Bigsby, you have to have him on sometime. What he is doing with the evolution of space and hybrid coupled with GP's analytics, it is mind-blowing. So I strongly encourage a conversation with Christian at some point. But I think the other piece is this notion of listening. Listen, that is never going to go away. What we are understanding is there's two pieces to that. One piece is, paying attention to your people and also looking at and understanding how your people are asking for attention. We do that through our weekly check-ins, and it is a lever that we will continue to pull because it has been a way in which for us to connect with our people that builds relationship and stickiness. People leave companies because of their leaders, not because of the company. But the second piece is they want to share. And what we have found is that people are 21% more likely to leave if we don't ask them to share what they're going through. And so I think all of us have some sort of pulse survey, something in our organizations. And right now is the time to leverage that because it is an indicator of people leaving if they aren't asked. The great hybrid resignation. Maybe that I'm going to change. I'm going to create a new name for it. The Great Resignation is an opportunity for us to drive innovation in new and different ways. And it is absolutely pushing us inside of Cisco to start connecting the things that have been successful in different ways to deliver a different outcome.
Well, Shari, thank you so much. And team, we just want to just last poll question here, because I want to make sure we get this in because we were really interested. 6 out of 10 of you said you've got a very strong relationship with your IT CIO. We want to know, because a hypothesis is, how much does HR actually influence the technologies that are actually connecting this world of work as well? And so we're just interested to know to what degree you or the HR function that you're in is actually influencing that decision. If you wouldn't mind answering that quickly. And while we do that, I just want to thank Shari Slate for stepping in. Shari, it speaks volumes to you. It speaks volumes to the company of how you were able to come in. You did a wonderful job. Really, thank you for all the insights. love that you thought to bring in, and that Gianpaolo spent time from his evening now in Milan to spend time with us. And oh, Gianpaolo, I'm telling you, would I and my team love to just peel your brain back a little bit on the analytics piece, because we've got some interesting things we'd love to bounce off you as well. But want to thank everyone. We're taking a break next week. Oh, okay. Look at this. We've got some decent 21% high extent, 54% moderate extent. Okay. So HR is influencing the collaborative technology decisions. That's good to see. But just want to thank everyone. I want to thank my colleagues, Kari Naimon and Alex Madsen on the back end here, and Carrie Bevis. We will see many of you next week in Scottsdale. And if we don't see you in Scottsdale, we'll reconnect with you next month on our next monthly call. Kari Naimon, anything to sign out with?
Just thanks, everybody. And hopefully we get to see you in person, at least some of you next week. And thank you so much, Shari and GP. We really appreciate your involvement with this. Very, very good. Thank you.
All right.
Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Kevin.
Cheers, everyone.
Thanks, GP.
Ciao.
Thank you,
Okay.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.